We're now dealing with the Haydn Trumpet Concerto, and again we're now looking at the arranging techniques that are used through this arrangement. There's not a lot of them to go over in the tuba part. It was mostly a large orchestral transcription that was required for this one, and taking the orchestra score, condensed it down to piano and looking at the techniques involved in that. But the tuba part again, it just kind of sits, it's an E flat part on the trumpet, and I've always thought it would sit quite well, so I've finally arranged it across. It does tend to sit quite well. There's a couple of areas where I had some concerns that it just sits too low in the register, such as the ending and such as 140, but with the piano it seems to sound okay. So let's have a listen to some of it. It's the opening phrase, so I've had a large orchestral introduction, and then we open up with so these semiquavers are a little bit tricky, just slow them down a little bit. And it's just getting the tongue working there, so we'll do that, we'll cover it again, we'll do some rehearsal work on this, and then I'll let you know how we get on with that and how that was formed. The opening's quite, it sits well, it's all open notes, or mostly open notes. And that B flat there is the returning note, dun 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 dun, and it's just working around that first, the fifth of the note, the B flat, and the first of the note, the scale. So go between tonic and dominant. And that reiterates the key. It's also features from the early brass. This was one of the first concertos written for the piston valves, and we just cover that a little bit. So each valve on the tuba or on any brass instrument is a series of holes. I can't get any of them open. And it works by there we go. So the piston valve on the tuba or on any brass instrument features a series of holes that alters the pitch of the instrument by then feeding there through one of the an alternative tube to what it's set as. So previous to the piston valve being introduced on the instruments, it was there was various ways of writing chromatically for brass, which I've covered in a blog, using holes in the instrument, using your hand over the belt to change the pitch of the instrument, and general other ways people invent keyed brass. But the piston valve really sort of revolutionised how instruments were made. And this was the first showpiece work, so what we could then do is, instead of playing lots of the early stuff which we've got here, we could play bars like the next one. And again the next bar, and that's made possible by quickly being able to move, as the rest of the instruments did, using these valves. And that transfers well onto the tuba. It's something that I thought would work, was kind of in the earlier stages where it wasn't writing wasn't incredibly difficult for the trumpet. It's got harder or a bit more difficult as people have explored the capabilities of the instrument. So it works quite well as a tuba transcription. So the area that I was talking about that sounds a little bit muddy is this area at 140. We'll just play through that just now. And actually it sits quite well with the piano and sounds alright there. So we've got these little stabs of the next things, just again left them as written. It's up to the player. A lot of Haydn's writing is up to the player to interpret. So we've got and again, just leaving them written MF. There's not much dynamic writing in this score, it's all 40 MF piano are the only dynamics we've got, and a fortissimo towards the end. So we'll just get them nice and sharp, nice and clear, and they work quite well as well. So this arrangement just sits well on the instrument, and by saying sits well, everything falls underneath the fingers, or underneath, or well with the playing. And it's something that some arrangers strive to try and get, and some arrangers don't ever quite reach that. So the idea of this was to try and get something that sits well on the instrument and be able to demonstrate that. And it just, you can fly along playing it because it all sits nice and easily. So from 180, it's again a recap of an earlier tune. Even the faster bars sit quite well underneath the instrument. So the next idea it's probably to be a little bit smoother if you were to interpret it, but it's not scored any way other than these two notes. So you got, and it's the quavers that are slurred. And again, these notes here mostly sit on the open valves, and that's an idea that probably came from an earlier period where that's the notes that were written for trumpets, would be these kind of fanfare ideas, dum da-da-dum, ba-ya-dum, ba-ya-dum, and it's just combined some of the valve combinations that you could then use, or the ability to have those valves there. So the first one's open, completely open. And you could probably get that E flat E there on an open valve as well. It doesn't have the same colour, but it's just about the same note. So that's something, it doesn't sound the same, it would be a little bit off, but if you want to, you can play that probably in open valve there. So again, this is another example, open valve, see our first valve there. And it's just using these different combinations of valves, but writing in a very sort of classical way, or a very early brass period way at times in this concerto. So we've got some bars that are a new modern way of writing, but Haydn's then still respected what came before, and still being inspired a lot by what came before, and that's why we've got these sort of fanfares on the open valves as they're written. And it finishes off, the last section that I had a worry was probably from 280, but it goes quite low, so we've got the main tune comes back again. And it's just hard work there from the player to really keep those notes nice and steady. That's the bottom B flats there. They're probably the lowest note in the E flat trumpet, certainly the lowest note that you'd ask a soprano to go down to in a brass band. And we've talked a little bit about the register of instruments, and that's a really strong register there for the trumpet to play in. And that's why it finishes there. So it's nice strong fanfare lines. And it finishes off the whole work, brings it to the end there. And again using really early period stuff there. It's all moving in fifths. So it's stuff that's came before Haydn's writing that he's using in this concerto. Showing off the trumpet, showing off the piston valve trumpet, but again still working with early brass techniques. And that's why it transfers quite well into the tuba, because it's all written in a way that's quite simple. It's nothing too tricky within it. and it just sits quite nicely on an E-flat instrument, as it's meant to be written. So there wasn't a lot changed in that part. There was quite a bit changed in the piano part, and that's what made the arrangement of the Haydn Concerto.